So my problem in networking is I focus too much on saying my own name when I meet somebody rather than listening to what that person says their name is, and I just forget their name entirely.
So just to talk about that real quick, so one of the things is, how many of you have trouble remembering people's names? Is that pretty universal? We can all agree to that? This happens to be a super simple tip, but I use it all the time with names, and it makes a huge difference. So if I meet Andy and I'm having a networking conversation with Andy, I will keep saying his name during the conversation. So it forces me to get that in my head. Andy. Andy, that's a great point. Andy, yeah, I like that. Andy, great to meet you. And it sounds really kind of silly, and you don't do it where it's obnoxious, but you do it enough where if you do it 3 to 5 times in the conversation, you'll remember. If you think about one of the most fundamental interpersonal communication skills is active listening, okay? So here's what I would say for you. When you walk up and saunter up to that conversation and people are there, my best advice to you, we're going to actually do an activity on this tonight, is my best suggestion is to use your active listening skills and respond to what the conversation is. So if we're talking about our companies or our colleges or whatever, say, oh yeah, wow, you went to Framingham State, boy, that's great, you know, and then kind of interject. But if you start out by engaging yourself in something they're talking about, to me, that's a way to endear yourself in a conversation. How many of you, when you're talking to someone in a meeting, in a conversation, actually take notes on your phone? Does anybody ever take notes on their phone? Okay, I take notes on my phone, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with taking notes on the phone if you announce to people that you're taking notes on the phone. So, because otherwise, if you get your phone out and you're typing stuff, it looks like you're texting or being rude. So as long as you tell people what you're doing, it's okay. One of your goals in a conversation is to be memorable, to say something that you can actually refer back to when you talk to them again. There is a word in the English language that I think about, absolutely no exaggeration. It's a sad thing, but no exaggeration, multiple times a day, and it's the word differentiate. Okay? You guys are all at a point in your lives where you're very successful, you've gotten a good way into your career, but the funny thing about the word differentiate is think about when you're in school growing up. What do we do in school? We fit in. We try to fit in. And then all of a sudden, we get into high school, we got to go to college. So now we try to stand out. And you totally shift fitting in to standing out. When you try to stand out, part of the problem is when you're in high school and college, and even when you graduate college, is you're not used to talking about yourself unless it's for like a job interview. And so unless it's a job interview, how do you sell yourself? How do you stand out from your peers and demonstrate value? So what do you want to know when you first meet someone to know if you've made a connection or if that person's your kind of person? What do you want to know?
Well, I want to know about them first, who they are, their name, where they live, what they do, and what makes them special.
Love that answer. What makes them special? That's a great answer. What is the typical first question when you are networking with someone? What do you do? That's what we all ask. What a snooze. Like we all ask it, but why? That's not the most important thing to learn about something. That will come up in the course of conversation anyway, because Vanessa and Jeanette have told us that if you talk about what they suggested, it's going to lead to that anyway. Jan over there has come up with the greatest singular answer to what do you do. I always give her credit for this. So this is what she said. When someone says to her, what do you do? She says, do you mean for work or for fun? Pretty slick, right? And because don't we want to shift the conversation to something fun? Your why is really the key to engaging other people. Okay? Let me give you a quick example so I can model it for everybody. Someone said to me, Mark, what is your why for doing MindsetGo? Simple. What do we do at MindsetGo? We help people build relationships, learn how to influence people, and master the art of conversation. Why? Because when I was 23 years old and became an unexpected father, I didn't have a lot of support systems and skills at that time. So as I got older, I wanted to help professionals and parents and teachers and students master those skills to build up their confidence and skill set. Right? That's a why, right? Something that happened. No, it doesn't have to be sappy, right? But it has to be something that if you're telling me what Jeanette said, like, how'd you get here? Like, what's this all about for you? It's got to be compelling. Do you know how many people in the world will say they help people? Helping people's not a differentiator. Why you help people is a differentiator. So why do you help people? Why is that important to you? The problem is when we talk to people, we want to talk about what feels safe, which is our business, which is what we understand, which is what we're talking about all day. Stop worrying about feeling safe. Okay? Start being a human, authentic, genuine person that's vulnerable enough to let people get to know you and form a relationship with you. You know, when I go to a networking event, you know what my goal is? My goal is when I leave, do I want to hang with that person? Forget business. Would I want to hang with that person? Would I enjoy their company? Okay? Because at the event itself, I am not worried about closing a deal. I am not worried about defining whether Rebecca can do something to help me. I am worried about forming relationships, building connections, and letting people see who I genuinely am.
I, as of 2009, graduated from a private university of which my parents made more than enough money for FAFSA to not want to give me anything, but less to not be able to actually contribute. So a lot of my student loans were private, unsubsidized, direct with Sallie Mae. That whole experience kind of set me off starting at 18 towards this whole fresh new credit perspective. Got 3 credit cards right as I got into college, maxed them all, graduated with 6 figures of student loan debt, and to be very frank, have a very clear understanding of the debt collection picture in the United States. So me and 2 of my other friends who are now my co-founders have started a social impact debt collection platform that we've just finished raising our angel round, and now we're currently working towards raising a $3 million seed round, with the idea of being the antithesis of your debt collection experience. So no aggressive phone calls, no litigation against your house or your car, no repossessions. We want to be consumer advocates while still being a collection company, showing that you can actually collect money from consumers without being a jerk. So that's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I'm working towards.
Okay. So I'm really glad Jake volunteered, because 80 to 90% of what he said is phenomenal. There's one slight tweak we want to do, and this is for all of you, okay? I'm sure this is not a Jake issue. I'm sure this is all, including me too, by the way. So who in here feels like they're great with attention span? Raise your hand if you think you've got a great attention span. Okay, nobody has a good attention span. And so why do we all text and use social media to communicate now? Because it's simple and it's quick, right? When you are in a conversation with people, this is a mnemonic I want you to remember as a tip. I call it the rule of 3, okay? The rule of 3 is you get to say 3 things in 10 to 15 seconds, and then you get to be finished. Unless your story is so compelling and engaging that I'm like, you got me. I'm just so engaged in what you're saying. You can go longer. But your story is great, but we have to consolidate it down to 3 central points. So Jake, try it. So what is the 3 key points in your story that really would engage people and show your passion? Finish college up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I finished college with 6 figures of student loan debt.
1.
Acknowledged that there was a problem in the industry as it relates to debt collection.
Yep.
Decided to jump into it and create a startup company to be able to help consumers not be in the same situation I'm in.
Done. That's what you got to say. The rule of 3 is not just because people lack attention span, and it's important to be succinct. The rule of 3 is to be engaging. You know what the engage test is? You know how you know if you were engaging? That's it. Rebecca's got it. Because you don't want to vomit out everything about yourself so they have nothing else to ask. That story is very compelling that Jake says. So who wouldn't have another question to that? And again, Jake, your story is so great too, because again, you had a personal experience with something, you did something about it, you're entrepreneurial, and here you are today. I mean, that's a really wonderful story too. I would say that one of the other ways you can find your story is to look at maybe your upbringing in childhood. Sometimes we're very impacted in our life by the way we were raised by our parents and the values they imparted on us. And so one of the things that you don't hear often in professional circles is you don't hear the concept of core values, okay? But they're really important. Now, if I was considering hiring Andy, are you private practice or are you?
Yep.
Okay. So if I was, now I want everybody to be honest. If I was thinking of hiring Andy as my attorney, and I was sitting at a table with him learning about Andy, and he said to me, Mark, you know what, before we get started, I'd like to share some of my core values of the relationships I like to have with my customers. And I'd like to learn a little bit about your core values to see if we're a good fit. How many of you would be like, what? Be like, did you just say core values? I thought we were going to talk about business and law, and now we're talking about core values. Now that's a guy that's connected with a relationship, and he wants to get to know somebody. So how would you, part of this, guys, is how to use the story in an interesting way. So how has that experience shaped your life, and how does it help you in your life today, in your job, in your personal life? How does that help?
Well, what I told John is that I give way too much, just to everybody who I live with, have personal relationships, work relationships. I get way too invested. And so what I talked about is the fact that as a bookkeeper, I really help entrepreneurs who are totally scared of all things financial feel a lot more comfortable and help them to understand what's going on in their business. And then you can just see the stress go away.
So she tied it in brilliantly. That's exactly what I was talking about. Great job. I was once in a room I was at a show in Atlanta in front of 200 high school kids. And so I asked the room, you're in high school, how do you differentiate yourself? Pretty hard to differentiate yourself in high school, because they haven't done a lot yet, right? And so no one wanted to participate, no one wanted to answer. Kid in the front of the room says, really sheepishly, like he raises his hand, he's like, I like to dance. Of course, the whole room laughs. They think it's so funny because they're thinking, well, how would that be relevant? And I said, well, that's a fantastic answer, because how many boys in high school will admit they like to dance, right? That's pretty unusual. So if I was interviewing a high school kid for an internship or a job, and he was telling me that in the interview, that would strike self-confidence, right? And being comfortable with who he is. Those are two pretty good qualities, not like you see a lot in high school. So for Elliot's case, I'm not saying to go there, but my point is, the fact that you were doing something like that in 30 is pretty cool, right? Like, how many people do you know that were a nutcracker in 3rd grade, right?
The owner also.
Really? Wow. Wow. So that is pretty interesting. When you are in business for yourself, all right, we're not going on Shark Tank. For those of you who like that show, I'm not going on Shark Tank. I don't have a secret sauce. When you're in business for yourself, the secret sauce is you. Do you guys ever think about there's a lot of words in our society in what we talk about interacting with other people. One of them is these pairs of words, extroverted and introverted, right? So I find it such an interesting dilemma, because we always want to assign, oh, Rebecca, you're extroverted. Michael, you're introverted. We always want to assign it. But you know, we all know that most people are a combination of both, right? That's the simple thing. The problem is, then there's words like shy and quiet. Now, no one ever uses the word shy and quiet in a positive way, right? It's almost like when you meet someone, they said, hey, what'd you think of Mark? Interesting. Good, that's great. Unique. So shy and quiet. But shy and quiet could mean you're just thoughtful, you process information, you're good about setting up boundaries. It doesn't have to be bad, but people perceive it as bad. So I want you guys to pair off with someone, have a conversation about what are 3 pieces of feedback over the course of your life, 2 good, 1 bad, that people have shared with you that, hey, these are 2 great qualities about you, and boy, if there's an area that, and I'm talking about like a job interview area of improvement, a personality trait that, boy, if I was to give you advice on anything, this is the vibe you give off. I tell you, it's not ideal. Because when you walk in a room, Andy, tall. Andy might be Andy might be the friendliest guy in the world, but tall people intimidate, right? They have a tendency to intimidate. So Andy's got to know that when he has conversation, he might intimidate people just because of his height. Might have nothing to do with who he is, but he just might. I do a program for companies called Mindset Millennial, and let me just tell you something. One of the things I always tell the older generations, okay, is one of the biggest things people pick on about millennials, it cracks me up, is that millennials need a sense of purpose. And I say, I don't know, is that a bad thing? I'm like, don't we want to learn that from many millennials instead of belittle them for it? Because it would seem to me that we should all have a sense of purpose and passion in our life, and if we don't, we tend to get bored and disinterested. So I don't know about you, but I kind of think that's a good thing. So the stereotypes are not only incorrect in many cases, but they're misinterpreted, we'll say, so to speak. So let's talk about perception. So guys, who wants to volunteer? Jeanette, what were your 2 and 1?
My 2 and 1?
Yep.
So I preface it by saying that they're going to contradict each other.
Okay.
My negative is that I can come off as very cold, but at the same time, I'm very bubbly and outgoing.
Can you see why people would say you come off as
Yes.
cold? So do you do anything? Because, guys, one of the things to think about with perception is if you know these perceptions, whether they're true and unfair, doesn't matter if they're unfair. Because if that's how you're perceived, then you got to do something about it. So if you know that, do you ever adjust your approach knowing that people might think that?
Yeah.
How?
I just try to smile as much as I can.
That's great. So what do you do at your company?
So more or less outside sales
Outside
and
sales.
kind of relationship building. Yeah.
Okay. So you're a relationship builder. So I would just say you're a relationship builder.
Why would I say that though?
Huh?
Why would I say that?
Why would you say you're a relationship builder?
Yeah, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, ugh.
I'm so thrilled you asked. This brings everything full circle tonight. We talked about perception among your characteristics. What we didn't talk about is your title and industry. Sales, stay away. You're in sales. I'm in sales. You're in sales? Oh, you're one of those. Let me tell you, you're in sales. You want to talk about the perception people have right out of the gate. So you don't want to go near that word. Make sense? Two dirtiest words in the English language, sales and change. Stay away from those words. They scare people. John Yvonne, talked about this. What are you saying?
I'm a flooring concierge.
Right? Flooring concierge. Who the heck ever associates concierge with flooring? Nobody. Wouldn't that raise what do you mean flooring concierge? If someone says, what do you mean, you did your job. Because it forced them to ask another question. Go ahead.
I've used it. It leads into conversation where everyone's like, wait, what? I was like, oh.
Well done.
Yeah.
Oh, it has to because no one uses those 2 words together. That's interesting.
I'm the Beyonce of insurance.
The Beyonce of insurance. Now, we definitely have to ask why that is.
Well, I figured everybody knows who Beyonce is, and she's fabulous, so have them be like, what, you're Beyonce? Be like, yeah, I'm always Beyonce. She can confirm I'm Beyonce.
So,
Yes. I did. I really did.
and so, just so everyone knows, that answer is so tremendous because even though it doesn't necessarily tie in, don't you guys, your first interaction with Alyssa is bubbly, happy, funny, that's what you want. So talk about perception. My perception is, Alyssa, you look like a fun person to hang with.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah. Okay? Andy. Andy, no more lawyer talk.
I mean, I kind of want to be the Jay-Z of law now.
Brilliant, brilliant,
Does that work?
brilliant.
I don't know. I think I solve people's problems. I'm a problem solver when people are down.
It's okay. Too many people use that.
Full circle.
Getting sharp. I love this. This is getting better and better as we go
I have
on.
99 problems.
I just want to say what Albert said. That is one of the best I've heard. Help people sleep at night. Guys, when you're talking about your business, John Yvonne uses a word like concierge. Who doesn't have a positive vibe of the word concierge? We all love concierge. So when you think of how you're describing, connect with your audience of who you're talking to. What do they want? What's valuable to them as opposed to your description? And helping people sleep at night, everybody wants to help sleep well at night. The moral of this whole story tonight, guys, is you have to differentiate yourself with your job title, with how you're perceived, with how you interact with other people, with what you wow people with, all of it. You all email people, right? If you send an email and the subject line's boring, they're not going to read it. Okay? So if you're boring, they're not going to want to talk to you. So differentiate yourself.
This is kind of entailing. I had a really good time with you today. I learned a lot of things that I didn't actually think I was going to learn.